but I see those guys, those gods.
You don't think they need me?
I think they do, which is a lot scarier. They're a mess.
Yeah. I guess they're my mess.
You need to be sure that this team is really a team and that they have your back.
If we were to understand identity as a performance, in the sense that we all innately wear different masks in different contexts, like wearing a uniform in work and following professional etiquettes that you wouldn't express anywhere else.
Yes, ma'am.
Barton, might have something.
Gotta go.
Then one of the key factors that determine our performances are the people we're with. Because often it takes at least two to build an identity, since our actions and interactions need to be received for us to understand how we portray ourselves. Irving Goffman defined this factor as teams, which are the company that we keep around us. And this whole approach to identity is effectively the defining creative motive for the character of Hawkeye. He's there to reinforce how the identities of others around him perform, by simply being a friend and as an ordinary man. So the purpose of this essay is to explore this very specific creative purpose and see how it evolves within each film. And everyone's been bloody asking me to make this video, so finally, here it is.
This way.
Whosoever be he, worthy shall have the power.
Whatever, man, it's a trick.
I put an arrow through Loki's eye socket. I sleep better, I suppose.
No one eats in a dining room.
Hawkeye's first appearance is technically in Thor 1, where he cameos as one of the many S.H.I.E.L.D. security personnel during Thor's attack. The scene is not particularly important because it's ultimately just a novel cameo.
I need eyes up high with a gun.
But at the same time, it also introduces Hawkeye's fundamental and very specifically continuous purpose for the rest of his appearances, which is that he is ultimately a member of the setting. Someone who sets the stage for someone else.
Alright, show's over.
Subsequently in the Avengers, his purpose as the human context that grounds others around him is spotlighted by his relationship with Black Widow, because his entire importance is seen through her gaze.
Agent Barton was sent to kill me. He made a different call.
In her mind, he's not just a man, but a psychological marker that provides her a sense of emotional legitimacy. Loki even makes a point of this.
And you think saving a man no more virtuous than yourself will change anything?
Clint being mind-controlled is effectively torture for Nat because she's robbed of her context. Without her stage partner, she finds it harder to perform her identity as someone seeking for penance. But then, once Clint is recovered, we get a glimpse of the roles that this friendship provides.
Tessa. Thanks.
They encourage each other with strong, forgiving values.
How many agents did I get?
Don't do that to yourself, Clint.
And in both appearances, Clint's purpose is effectively used to provide a reference point for the grander context and what shape it is for another character. For storytelling purposes, he's there to show Thor's moment was not exactly what he thought it was. And for character purposes, he's there to provide vindication for who Nat wants to be.
Your world in the balance, and you bargained for one man.
Regimes fall every day. I tend not to weep over that. I'm Russian. Or I was.
Age of Ultron injects Clint with 3 additional points of interest. There's the farmhouse sequence, which functions as a form of interrogation for other characters.
Isn't that the why we fight? So we can end the fight? So we get to go home?
Every member of the Avengers gets ripped open by the story because they all have a small internal discovery when experiencing the warmth of Clint's home life. Steve has a moment of recognition that this simple life that he's always wanted holds no relevance to the person he's become.
Guy who wanted all that went in the ice 75 years ago. I think someone else came out.
Tony realizes that this is absolutely what he wants. Thor is reinvigorated with who he must protect. Bruce and Natasha find a future to ironically share their common lack of a future.
I can't have this. Kids, do the math. I physically can't.
This whole sequence, which dominates the majority of the second act of the story, is an expansion of Hawkeye's purpose. It's there to give a stage for other characters, for them to wear the masks of the ordinary and those they've chosen to protect to figure out if they fit or not. While for Clint, it's also a point of recognition in understanding what his purpose is in the Avengers.
You need to be sure that this team is really a team.
He is the stage, because his superpower is the context he brings by merely being the family man made of simple flesh and blood. The second and third points of interest is his relationship with the twins. Pietro is Hawkeye's rival because he countered Wanda's trick and has entered in a game of competitive wits with him.
You didn't see that coming.
And then there's Wanda, who allows us to have a perspective in seeing Hawkeye's contextual powers firsthand.
I just need to know because the city is flying. Okay, look, the city is flying. We're fighting an army of robots, and I have a bow and arrow. None of this makes sense.
By simply being merely Jeremy Renner with a bow and arrow, he gives Wanda strength and vulnerability, and thus is able to plant herself in a new stage.
Right behind you. What about the core?
I'll protect it. It's my job.
And to wear a new mask as a member of the Avengers. In both cases, giving Pietro a legacy and giving Wanda a new role, sheltering the Avengers with his farmhouse, Clint provides context to everyone around him, and a set of values that deepens their connections with their own identities. As a result, Civil War brings Clint back as a counter for the political context of the Accords and of Tony's position.
Hey, Clint.
Hey, man.
He's present once again to stimulate a more active identity for Wanda, one that demands individual responsibility and action.
Look, you want to mope, you can go to high school. You want to make amends, you get off your ass.
In contrast to her identification with Vision, who argues collective responsibility. However, the most important moment is his prison scene with Tony.
The futurist is here. He sees all. He knows what's best for you, whether you like it or not.
This exchange is a naked battle of context, where two people offering two different conflicting stages are at odds because the very grounds of the situation lacks commonality.
Criminals, Tony. I think that's the word you're looking for. It didn't used to mean me, or Sam or Wanda. But here we are.
Because you broke the law.
Yeah.
I didn't make you.
La, la,
You read it, you broke it.
La, 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 la.
All right? You're all grown up, you got a wife and kids. I don't understand. Why didn't you think about them before you chose the wrong side?
You gotta watch your back with this guy. There's a chance he's gonna break it.
One man is focused on preparing for transition, and the other is focused on protecting a sense of continuity. Clint doesn't argue the values of his politics with Tony's like Steve did early in the film.
If we sign this, we surrender our right to choose.
Instead, he argues over the value of their friendship. In his mind, Hawkeye believes that the rules of trust and camaraderie matters more than the laws written on paper.
Cap needs our help. Come on.
You know, I wouldn't have called if I had any other choice.
Hey, man, you're doing me a favor.
We're still friends, right?
Depends on how hard you hit me. As much as I hate to admit it, if we're gonna win this one, some of us might have to lose it.
As a result, Clint's conversation implicitly encourages Tony to put his friendship above his political position and to change his performance.
It's good to see you, Tony. You too, Cap.
His context is one of the major forces that overrides Tony's, because that's his superpower. Therefore, the thematic pattern that persists in these appearances from Age of Ultron to Civil War is Clint's service as a representative of a stage that forces the other characters around him to introspectively examine themselves, from Wanda to Tony. Subsequently entering into Endgame, the film opens with Hawkeye and his family, before and after the snap. to ironically give an intimate context for the audience as he did for the Avengers previously, because Endgame is ultimately an exploration of trauma. So to introduce this concept, we take the context away from the man who this whole time had been providing context for everyone else.
A few hours from where?
Safe house.
To show how trauma is a psychological state that has no context. Within the study of memory, trauma is often defined as a painful event that damages the continuity that the self depends on, not only to make meaning in the past or present, but to allow the individual to imagine a future.
If I move on, who does this?
In the case of Clint, he loses the narrative that gave him purpose. He loses his family and his identity as a father and husband. As a result, he can no longer absorb new experiences.
Don't give me hope.
Clint's entire life's narrative is one of failure now. Someone who gave up his profession as a superhero to raise his children who are nothing but dust now. Therefore, he now becomes Ronin, a vengeful vigilante on a path of endless violence, searching for context in death.
Killing all these people isn't gonna bring your family back.
The story of Endgame is framed by the deconstruction of Hawkeye. By not appearing in Infinity War, he provides the story with a distinct and new set of thematic boundaries. One where Steve, Tony, Natasha, and Thor's arcs are given grander meaning because they all contribute to the same story. The restoration of a man becoming a father again. And this is particularly highlighted with Natasha's scenes with Clint. First, she acts as a messenger for hope. Then she redeems him as he did once for her.
Oh, I don't judge people on their worst mistakes.
Maybe you should.
You didn't.
And in the end, she trades her life to give him his context back. This scene is particularly interesting because unlike their scene in The Avengers, it's written from a completely shared perspective. We're not looking at Clint from Natasha's perspective. Instead, the expressed emotional content is equal.
You're a pain in my ass, you know that.
Clint is now a man searching for context, and Natasha is providing it to him. Their relationship is inverted, but it's still rooted in the way they've always given each other a shared stage. So in the end, when Nat dies and Clint has his family back, it's a bittersweet victory. One where Clint is no longer the same man. He's got a bit of Nat in him now, because when he confesses his hopes with Wanda...
You know, I wish there was a way that I could let her know that we won. We did it.
It's him needing support. Clint is given a second life where he's no longer the stage. Identity requires anchorage in different ways because we're all kinda like big floating balloons looking for a destination to be tied down to. As Goffman said, a social relationship is a way in which the person is forced to trust his self-image and face, to tact and good conduct of others. And Hawkeye offers a form of interpersonal anchorage, where he's always there to set the stage for how other people see themselves. By simply being human, optimistic, and sharing, he allows his comrades to measure the power of their strengths and follow a similar kind of performance.
Maybe I should take a page out of Barton's book. Build Pepper a farm, hope nobody blows it up.
Hawkeye tends to get poo-pooed on a lot, including from Jeremy Renner himself.
I thought I didn't have any abilities. What's Ant-Man gonna do?
But, I don't know, I like him.
Can't forget Renner. You get Hawkeye. That's a huge get.